When my 6-year-old son told me he wanted to dunk like the pros, I knew it wasn't just about putting up a regular hoop. It had to be strong, safe, and something we could build together. So I took a look around and thought, why not repurpose materials from my old DIY projects? I had wood scraps, bolts, wires, and a head full of ideas. It was time to get creative. My first attempt? I used an old plastic catch tray from a dog kennel as the backboard. I drilled holes along its perimeter so I can insert heavy-duty zip ties to fasten it onto our wrought iron gate. With nuts and bolts, I mounted a 12-inch snapback hoop, which I bought online for 611 pesos, inclusive of delivery. It was light and strong enough to hold the iron hoop, but not dunk-proof. The moment my son tried to hang on it, I knew this setup wouldn't last long. Worse, it could even become a hazard. So I cautioned him not to do any dunking for the meantime until we build version 2. So I went back to the drawing board. First, I measured how high he could jump to figure out the perfect hoop height. It had to be low enough so he could reach it, but still high enough to be a fun challenge. From these measurements, I extrapolated the dimensions of the backboard. Next, it was time to upgrade the backboard. And we did it using reclaimed wood. With the help of my carpenter, Mang Ray, we picked out the straightest half-inch thick plywood we could find. After measuring and cutting it to the right length, we secured the pieces to the frame using 1-inch nails. Since the iron hoop would be mounted in the center, we added extra reinforcement behind that area to handle the weight and impact. Finally, we gave the front surface a thorough sanding. This step is crucial because the backboard needs to be flat and smooth for a basketball to bounce properly. When it was time to paint, I took the perfect opportunity to break out one of my favorite tools, painter's pyramids. These little gadgets are game changers. They lift the entire backboard off the surface, making it easier to paint all sides without anything sticking or smudging. I've had mine for over 5 years now, and they've been incredibly handy for all sorts of DIY projects. If you're curious about how they work, just click the video in the upper right corner. I've also dropped the link in the description below. Now, since this board will be mounted on the garage gate and constantly exposed to the elements, sun, rain, you name it, we needed a finish that could handle it all. That's why we went with an epoxy primer. It's tough, water-resistant, and perfect for outdoor use. All we had to do was mix the base paint with the catalyst, and boom, we were ready to get painting. Here's how the board looked like after 3 solid coats of epoxy primer. Every inch, front, back, top, and bottom, had to be completely sealed. That's not just for looks, it's absolutely essential. Any spot left uncovered could let moisture sneak in, and that's a recipe for rotting from the inside out. I needed this board to stay strong and last for years and years to come, so skipping or skimping simply wasn't an option. When it comes to protection, full coverage is non-negotiable. Next, we'll let the board sit overnight for the epoxy primer to fully cure. Once the primer had cured, I drilled 4 8mm holes into the board to match the mounting points on the hoop. Then I secured everything using bolts of the same diameter, fastening them tightly with nuts at the back. Up close, the setup looked clean and sturdy. You might be wondering how I managed to insert 2 bolts behind those springs. Well, I had to disassemble the hoop first to get clear access to those tricky holes. It was a bit of a hassle, but totally worth it. Unlike the dog kennel catch tray I used before, this new board felt significantly sturdier. I tried pulling on the hoop several times and the board didn't budge. It stayed rock solid. Because the board held firm, the hoop's snapback feature really came to life. It looked and felt legit. Next on the plan was drilling 5 holes near the top of the board. My goal? To insert 5 pieces of something strong enough to anchor the whole setup to that flat bar section of the gate. Obviously, zip ties were out of the question this time. The entire assembly was much heavier now, and zip ties just wouldn't cut it. Then I remembered I still had some leftover 12-gauge electrical wire from a previous project. Solid copper core wrapped in PVC insulation, it struck me as way stronger than any zip tie. After about an hour of drilling, cutting, and tying, the basketball hoop finally came together. Everything felt solid. I gave the hoop a few strong yanks and it didn't flinch. Around the back, I tied each wire securely with multiple knots, and just to be safe, I added zip ties to each one to prevent them from loosening due to vibrations. Those wires weren't going anywhere. Then came the fun part, dunk tests. The look on my son's face after his first dunk, absolutely priceless. Knowing the board could handle it, he let loose. At first, it held its weight just fine, but I hadn't factored in the added force from repeated dunks. After a few more slams, I started to see the issue. While the knots held strong, the copper wires began to stretch. That slowly lowered the entire board, and if they stretched too far, they might even snap. I realized I need to come up with a more reliable mounting solution, and soon. So I upgraded to 5 strips of stainless steel cables. Each one is 3mm thick with a breaking strength of 600 kilograms or 1,300 pounds each. And at the back, I used 2 sets of steel cable clips to hold the strips in place. Overkill? Maybe, but now the entire setup is rock solid and totally safe. Designing and building this was a blast. I loved the challenge, the problem solving, and most of all, seeing my son dunk like a pro. On something we built together. Sometimes, the best projects are made not just from wood and steel, but from love, creativity, and a little father-son teamwork.